Welcome to the PM Talk Show. This is Pat Marsh, your host. We're out here again on a beautiful fall day at Miller Lake, Channel 17, and we're happy to have with us very special guests, and we're coming up to the election season, and a lot of people are questioning with the changes in voting places, and we felt it necessary to bring our clerk of court on, Mr. Julian Dufreche. How are you today?
Hi, Pat. I'm doing fine.
Good. Thank you for coming. And as I said earlier, we have a lot of people who are questioning. They go into a poll and they're at the wrong precinct. So we want to give them some ways to find out before early voting begins and before they go in on election day to vote, those who will do so. So we're going to open the camera up to you and just let you have your way and talk about what's going on.
All righty. We'll talk about that specific instance in just a moment. I want to thank you for the opportunity.
Sure.
Elections are a big thing. They're
Yes.
a big thing, a major responsibility of ours in the Clerk of Court's office. And this is the beginning of a 2-year cycle where we have the largest amount of elections during that period. This year, and then next year, we'll have the gubernatorial race and the parish officials, and then the following year, the presidential election.
Right.
So it's going to keep us busy for a long time.
Right.
We have 110 elected official positions in Tangipahoa Parish.
Okay.
And on this particular election, 55 of them were actually up. Now, some of those people, like for instance, our district attorney,
Right.
Scott Parley, was unopposed, so he's not going to be on the ballot. But let me just go over what is on the ballot to start with, and then we'll cover that and then get into some of the other things that you were talking about.
Okay.
First of all, we have 2 Court of Appeals judgeships, but they were both unopposed, so they're not going to appear on the ballot.
Okay.
We have a Public Service Commission at the state level, which will be on the ballot for Tangipahoa Parish. Then we move down to our judges' races. We have 9 judges in Tangipahoa Parish. 6 of them handle civil and criminal duties. 2 of them, 2 newly created positions, are juvenile, family court judges, and then we have a juvenile judge.
Right.
Only 2 of those 9 positions are being contested. Judge Schutz was elected unopposed to the Court of Appeals, so his division has 3 candidates running in it. And then the Judge Oglesby, who was elected to the first family court position, was unopposed.
Okay.
So the second family court position is on the ballot, and there's 3 candidates in that race. And everybody in the parish will be voting for those 2 judgeships. In fact, it's a tri-parish area, 21st Judicial District.
Okay.
In addition to the judges, we have our school board members. 7 of the 9 school board members have opposition.
Right.
So depending on where you live in the parish, you may or may not have that on your ballot, but the majority of the people, like I said, 7 of 9 of them will be on the ballot. We have a judgeship in Hammond City Court, which was unopposed, Judge Gassaway. The marshal's position, with the retirement of Gordon Anderson, there were 8, I want to say there's 7 candidates running for that position.
Okay.
And then we have all of our justices of the peace and our constables. Now there's 7 each. We have 8 wards in Tangipahoa Parish. But the 7th ward, because of Hammond City Court, does not have a JP or a constable. In one of those races, 4 of them are contested, and another one, 5 of them are contested, and there's 7 in each one of those. Then we have municipal elections, and that's part of the reason why the ballot is so big, because Hammond, Tickfaw, and Kentwood are on the ballot this year. In Hammond, there's a mayor's election. The chief in Hammond is appointed, so there's no chief election in Hammond, and there's 5 councilmen, and 2 of those were unopposed, so there's 3 contested elections in the city of Hammond. Then you have Tickfaw, where there's a mayor's race. The current chief is running for mayor, and the chief a policeman who ran was elected unopposed. And you have 3 council members in the village of Tickfaw, and I think there's 8 people running for that position. And then in Kentwood, you have the mayor's race, the chief's race, and the council members' race. And that is going to take care of the candidates that are on the ballot. However, there's a lot more on the ballot because the state of Louisiana has 14 constitutional amendments on the ballot. And we want to talk about that for just a second. Because there's a 3-minute limit when you go into the machine, and we don't normally stay real strict with that unless there's a long line. So because of that, people need to familiarize themselves with these constitutional amendments. I looked at them. They're really hard for the common person, and I'm including myself in that category, to understand. But usually PAR, the Public Affairs Research Council, LABI, Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, they usually print little flyers that explain them, and so that the average person can understand and make a decision. Sometimes on these constitutional amendments, if you vote for it, you're actually voting against it. It's hard to explain, but it's very important for people to study them and know ahead of time when they go in that booth. And there's nothing wrong with taking a little piece of paper and writing the yes or no by each one of them. You can take that into the booth. Ponchatoula Area Recreation District also has a 10 mil tax renewal. But anyway, I did not cover everybody in Tangipahoa Parish will be voting for a United States Senator. And our parish has been split basically north and south for our congressional district. And both of those have competition. So there's a lot of decisions for people to make in going into the booth. And we want to caution all of our citizens. The most important thing, it's a very big responsibility of ours in the clerk's office. And to me, the most important thing, if somebody takes their time to go vote, I want them to be able to vote. That's what it's all about. So a lot of times people will get into the voting booth and they may think that they have the wrong ballot. And it can happen. It's been really improved upon. Many years ago, the commissioners had maps that they would look at. Well, I'm going to tell you, maps are hard to read if you're not familiar with the location. And a lot of times, people may have gotten the wrong ballot. However, with the age of computers and technology and all of that, now, because when you take the fact that every voter has a congressional district, they have a state representative district, they have a school board district, they have parish council districts, they have different taxing districts. It just goes on and on and on. And a lot of times these districts will cross over precinct lines. So it creates what we call a lockout. The way it's done now, when you go in and you sign your name in that precinct register, on the side of that there's a number. Let's say it's number 7. That tells the commissioner to pull the lever next to number 7 to give you the right ballot to vote on. Now, there's always a little bit of confusion after reapportionment. Because let's just say, for instance, you have been voting for your city council person forever, and it's your good friend, and reapportionment may have put that person into a different geographical district, and you go in there to vote. Well, you want to vote for Joe again, but you're no longer in Joe's district. So Joe's not going to come up on your ballot. And we have people that come out of the machines and say, well, my ballot wasn't on there. And that can happen. It's human error to certainly make a mistake. But a lot of times when we have these reapportionments, it's just happened in the school board. It's happened in the city of Hammond. So in this particular election, the people that live in the city of Hammond and the people that vote for their school board members, they may have been put into another district. I know I talked to John Russell, who is our registrar of voters, and I want to say he and I work very closely together to put on the elections. And I think there was like 75, we have 75,000 voters, but there was thousands of people who ended up in different districts because of reapportionment. So we worked real hard to make sure that we get it right. If a voter goes into the booth and they have any kind of a problem with the ballot, let's just say that they think they've been given the wrong ballot. The key to that is just step out of the ballot before you step out of the machine before you cast your vote, because once you push that button, it's all over with. And another little hint: if you want to, if you bring a child to the machine with you, make sure you put them on your left side, because that button is at the right level on the right-hand side, and it's got a light on it, and kids see it, they push it, and you voted. So, and you may not be finished with it. So we don't have a problem with somebody bringing a small child in the machine. Just make sure they put them on their left side and guard that button, because like I said, once you push it, you've cast your ballot. And I can't stress enough, our commissioners are highly trained. They go to school before every election. We continuously go over the things that are important and the things that we think we need to go over. But mistakes can happen. And if somebody experiences a situation in the voting process that they're not happy with, I want to know about it, because we want to look into it. And if there is a problem there, we want to correct it. And I would be a fool to sit here and say that sometimes things do happen. You know, we've had cases where commissioners would try to maybe steer somebody into voting for their candidate. Now, we have several people working at the polls, and anything like that, we have removed people from working. So it's a process, and let me say this too, on this particular election, number one, this is a federal election. It's on a Tuesday. The schools are closed, so the kids are all happy. I know my grandchildren are real happy. So the polls will open at 6 o'clock. Now, you know, just 2 sessions ago, the legislature changed the law that the polls would open at 7 o'clock in the morning instead of 6. Well, they changed it, but it did not affect federal elections. So the runoff date in December will be 7 o'clock opening, but this particular date, November the 4th, the polls will open at 6. When that law changed, it helped us tremendously, because at 5 o'clock in the morning, when we got 300 people going out to work, we have 84 precincts in the parish. At 5 o'clock in the morning, and you're working 300 people, somebody's going to get sick, somebody's going to have a death in a family, and we get phone calls at 5 in the morning, and we have to hustle to assign somebody to fill that position. So the 7 o'clock opening has given us another hour, which is very helpful to us, and the closing still is at 8 o'clock. Now, one of the most important things of all is to address getting to the right precinct. So a lot of times voters just really don't know, because they haven't voted in a few years. And you know, we've changed some precincts. We had 3 precincts that were at the Hammond Votech School that have now moved to Tangipahoa Park. And there will be several people who haven't voted at the Votech School who will want to vote in this election. They're not going to know, although they were sent a card, a new card from the Registrar of Voters, they're not going to know to go to the Tangipahoa Park. They're going to go to the Votech School. So my suggestion for anyone who has any doubt about where they vote, what they should do is call the Registrar of Voters in Amite or Hammond, and the registrar will steer them to the right place. Now, on election day, we run co-telephone lines. We get calls, and the registrar gets calls, and they're generated by the commissioner telling somebody if they're not sure where they vote or whatever. They get a number and they call, and then they'll direct them to the right place. The one thing that we always fear is like the Votech school. Now we've moved 3 precincts from there, but on election days like this, when they were open for business, parking was a problem.
Right.
And this is a very big election. There's a lot of, there's so many candidates on the ballot, and everybody knows there's a lot of hot races, especially the United States Senate race. Right. And we expect to have a good turnout, probably a little bit more than normal. And we take all that into consideration because we don't really want people having to stand in line any longer than what they should. And that's where the 3-minute time limit comes in. We don't like to enforce that, and we do not unless there is a long line. So at this point, the most important thing, as I said earlier, is for people to get to the right place to vote and be able to cast their vote without any problem.
And even better is to check before you go to vote to find out, because there has been changes, and that way you will eliminate a lot of the surprises that you might get because you haven't voted in a long time, or you haven't known, or you don't know that those changes were made. And then early voting is really a good time to vote because election day is on a Tuesday and a lot of people will be working. So would you encourage them to take advantage of early voting in the evenings and on Saturday?
Ms. Pat, let's just talk a little bit more about early voting because it's a fabulous thing. It gives people from the 13th day to the 6th day before the election an opportunity to go vote. So really there's no excuse not to cast a ballot. And early voting has been catching on more and more as time goes on, and it helps us out a whole lot. Now, everything that's done in the voting process, we have a board of election supervisors in every parish. We work under the Secretary of State's umbrella, and they have equipment at our office. And what we do, the board of election supervisors is a set group of 5 people: a clerk of court, registrar of voters, and person appointed by the governor, and a member of the Democratic Party and a member of the Republican Party. That group oversees all the elections. We meet like 7 times for every election. We open and close the voting machines. We will be meeting this coming Monday to appoint the commissioners that will be working in the upcoming election. So there's a lot of detailed work there, and any type of problems that we would have, all that goes before the board to make a decision. So it's a very, very well documented, the word I want, the election process is very well documented, and the Board of Election Supervisors oversee that. And again, if anybody has a problem and experience any kind of problem, they need to let us know so we can address it. Before we close, I'd like to just go back over, if anybody has any concern about where they vote, they need to call the registrar of voters, and they will get that information. And we are looking forward to a big election and a good election.
Okay, well, let me take this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Dufreche, for how you run your office, for the trained personnel that you have in your office. And whenever there's a problem, because I know we have run into problems, and when we came to your office, it was handled immediately, and that means a lot. So we want to thank you, and if you have any questions, just call your registrar of voters, call the clerk of court's office if you can't get through. But above all, make sure that you do vote and that you familiarize yourself with anything in your area that you will be voting on, especially the amendments, because they can help or affect you in some way, and you really need to know. Now, will all of this, the amendments, be in the newspapers?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so they will be in the newspaper. So run out and get a paper and just familiarize yourself, and if there are any questions about them, can they call your office and ask for clarification?
They can call our office at 748-4146.
Okay, so there you've heard it, and we hope that this program will be a big help, because a lot of people are wondering, where am I going to vote? But now you know what to do, and you can go out and do it. But above all, exercise your right to vote. Well, we want to thank you again for coming, and hopefully after the election we can bring you back to talk about how well the process went and whatever's involved with what will be going on with the upcoming elections, because we have some more major elections in the future that's going to come. We thank you again for coming. Thank you for the valuable information. And this is Pat Marsh, your host, saying we thank you for continuing to join the PM Talk Show. We want to continue to let you know that knowledge is powerful and it does matter. Thank you for joining us. Have a great week, and God bless.